Hey, buddy. Thanks for tuning back in. This is going to be part 3 of this video series, a summary of Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. Again, I've been going through the book on audiobook, so I did not have the physical copy. So we'll just add in the cover and post. There we go. This is the second time I'm doing this video because I got 15 minutes in last time and realized my mic was muted. So maybe this one will go a little smoother. Maybe it'll go worse. Tune in to find out. Cytonic is book 3 of the Skyward series, the Defiant series, the Cytoverse series by Brandon Sanderson. Book 4 is Defiant, and that comes out November 21st. November 21st. So I want to do the summary recap series to get people up to speed before book 4 comes out, in case you don't have time to do a whole review, reread. I just finished my re-listen recently, so I have it somewhat current. So let's dive in. Cytonic starts with Spencer. She was being pursued by the superiority, and she ducked in by their army, and she's on their homeworld, like one of their bases, and she jumps into a portal into the nowhere that they have been using to mine the material for the rings. What are the rings called? Acclivity stone for the acclivity rings. So she jumps into the portal. She has Mbot and a little drone. She is like Doomslug under an arm, and she jumps into this portal to the nowhere to escape because it's the kind of the only option she has. In there, she's confronted by all the Delvers. She's in the kind of in between nowhere space without time and everything, and she has like a whole conversation. She had previously showed a Delver that all the noise, the distractions, that those little ants that the Delvers hate, that keep being loud and annoying. There are people, they have hopes and wants and dreams, and they're, individuals, and they have lives and they matter. And that had kept the Delver from like destroying them all. And that angered all the other Delvers because they're all the same. They all have like a big hive mind. They love conformity, and they hate anything that's unique and different than themselves. So they start trying to destroy the Delver that Spencer had appealed to, and she tries to appeal to all of them and show them the same truth that she showed the first Delver, but now they're kind of like wise to it, and they've kind of guarded themselves against this revelation. So that trick kind of only works once as the Delvers adapt and change, and they're all the same. So if that works, if you don't get them all at once, that's never going to work again because they all adapt simultaneously, which is interesting. So the Delver that she had saved or changed, that's saved them, kind of appeals to her, like, hey, there's this path of elders, there's these like stone relic fragments that have memory, and you got to go on this path, and that'll help you grow in your Cytonic powers, and kind of teach you the history of the Delvers, the Nowhere, and Cytonics. So Spencer kind of gets thrown out of this central orb of like Nowhere into like the outer rim. And so it's easiest for me to think of it like a solar system. So all like the Delvers in the center are this bright light of like nowhere space, that the concentrated nowhere is like kind of like the sun in the middle of the starburst. And then the outer rim is all these kind of fragments orienting around like planets, but they're much smaller, and they had different biomes. So you have a sand one, a jungle one that's just a giant orb of water, kind of cities and ruins, and they're pretty large, kind of like islands, kind of floating around, like small to medium-sized islands, orbiting around outer space. Some of them are pretty far apart. So she appears on a jungle fragment surrounded by all these woods. She's from, caves. Where she's from is she grew up in caverns, so this is all very new to her, having this jungles and trees and life, which is pretty cool. So Mbot is becoming aware, like now that he's in the nowhere, he can process faster like his old times, because his Cytonic circuits that allowed him to process only in the nowhere were destroyed when his ship was destroyed. So he was in this little cleaning drone. He was talking real slow and thinking real slow. But now that he's in the nowhere outside of like time, he can process and think faster, and he's becoming returning more aware and more alive. So they're kind of arguing because he's kind of mad still that She left him and got his body destroyed. He's actually feeling for the first time. He's having emotions. He's not simulating. He's actually angry. He's actually upset, which is a big deal for him. So, Doomslug is gone. Sensor had told Doomslug, like, hey, teleport back home. You can flee. You get out of here. Get yourself safe. While they're arguing with Mbot, Spencer gets captured by pirates. There are like pirate bands roaming around these fragments, and she kind of learns a little bit that people like lose their memories in the nowhere, that their sense of like self and identity disappears. They can remember their stories, they can remember stuff like that, things they've read and heard, but friends, connections, family, their own name, kind of jobs they used to do, all of that stuff kind of fades, and they forget it. That people lose track of time. So there's a kind of memory loss here. But staying in groups and societies and communities helps. You help reinforce other people's sense of self, and remind people of who they are, and that kind of deteriorates a little slower. While they're searching, the pirates are searching Spencer, they find a reality icon in her pocket, which is the shape of her dad's flight pen, and a bunch of like handful of sand. And she learns these are reality ashes, and they're created by the reality icon. The reality icon is a strong tether back to her, like the real life, to real space, back to her home, and creates these reality ashes which people can consume, and it helps them like remind who they were, keep their sense of self and identity, and it slows and prevents the deterioration. So what she has is like very valuable, and they definitely want it. So Spencer is kind of like reaching out cytonically for like danger and help, and she connects to another mind, and this other adventurer says like, "Oh, I'll come help you." And then we see Chet, who's a new character, roam in on a dinosaur and just lay waste to all the pirates, cause a big havoc. Him and Spencer run away. All the pirates are firing laser blast into the dinosaur, and it just bounces off, tickles him, absorbs into him. And we learn the dinosaur is like not a meat eater, it's not like a T-Rex, but it eats energy. So all the energy blasts are just like food for it, and it starts munching on some batteries, and it's really happy, like takes a nap. It's just like a herbivore of electricity, electrovore, TM. And yeah, so we meet Chet, who is another Cytonic. He has been exploring the nowhere for hundreds of years, and his abilities allow him to intuit what the different fragments are and like where they might be, and so he's able to like hop. He's like, oh, these fragments are going to collide. I can jump from A to B to C. So he kind of can intuit stuff about the nowhere and the different fragments and what they have on them. And he also ages slower. He has a uniform, and it's the same last name on the uniform as Mbot's old pilot's name, Spears. And so they're like, oh my goodness, is this your long lost pilot that like landed on detritus and got pulled into the nowhere? Because they find these stone fragments that have the same symbols on them that Spencer found in the ruins on detritus, which she kind of learns are like doors and connections between the nowhere and real space. So she's like, hey, maybe your pilot landed, he was exploring, fell into the nowhere, and got trapped here for hundreds of years, and this is him. But she's also like, this is a big coincidence. Like, the first person we run into, besides the pirates, is your long-lost pilot we've been looking for. Like, what are the odds? So, they agree to, like, adventure together. Chet is a professional explorer, adventurer, and he loves doing this. So they find the first step on the Path of Elders. He's like, I've heard of this path, but I've never gone on it. But I'm Cytonic, I'll go on this with you, this journey. So they find a fragment with like these stones on it and these symbols. And each of the symbols is whenever a Cytonic passes through the stones of the door, they add their memories and it kind of grows. So the older fragments with a lot more activity have grown larger and larger. So all the memories are embedded in the stone that she can connect with. And she starts seeing the history of the nowhere, that there's like nothing, and then there's like a dot. And then reality, space starts leaking through this little dot, and that forms like stone, which forms an island, which forms these fragments. So and then you see different other fragments as we get this large passage of time. The starburst is very small, it starts going larger. That's our kind of our clock indicator. And so whatever planet these little like holes had formed on, these like leakages, between reality and the nowhere is what formed the fragments. And they took on the properties of what they were leaking from. So if they were like in an ocean or in a jungle or like in a rocky area, that's what kind of leaked through this hole. And then the first like Cytonic appears, and then we see another fragment kind of collides, and then we get this connection between early races. So we get the early like Kitsune and early humans and the Diones meeting with like the Krell. And this is before intergalactic travel, before space flight. This is how these different civilizations have first met, exchanged like ideas and language and culture. The Cytonics, a small few, had actually met in the nowhere and were able to travel between places. So some of these oldest alliances and bonds between races were formed here in the nowhere. In these early memories, there is no memory loss, which is interesting. So we get that kind of tidbit. And every time Spencer finds a fragment, she learns a little bit about her power. So she learns to whisper instead of like yelling, which always mentally yelling angered the Delvers and drew their attention higher. She's learned how to like whisper, and instead of like yelling at someone, she can like listen and pull out ideas and thoughts. So she gets a greater sense of people's like intent and stuff like that. During her dreams and everything, she's able to like connect with Jorgen and figure out what he's doing. And him and all of the other main characters from the other books, there are stories being told in a side series called Skyward Flight, which is kind of happening concurrently, I believe. I haven't read it yet. But we get glimpses a little bit like what Jorgen's doing. He had taken training with Gran to develop his own latent Cytonic abilities. Him and some of the other people, the Deep Caverns, were also Cytonic, but they've been covering it up for like a long time as a defect, and they were keeping it secret. But he's learned to like listen and be aware, and he's hearing the same whispering that Spencer heard from the stars, but he's hearing the whispers come from within the planet. And he explores through and he finds like a cavern of other slugs, other Cytonic slugs like Doom Slug. So he finds that. He's also fighting against the superiority that they're still trying to like take down the planet. And so he's like dogfighting and leading the resistance. So we get the sense that things are dire. During these visions, I'm giving you these all at once because we get them kind of out of order and I don't quite remember the order. But we also learn that Winzik and Braid are making deals with the Delvers, saying like, hey, if you wipe out the human planet Detritus, like we'll go and eradicate all of the Cytonics, and there will be no more people coming to the nowhere and disturbing you and making noise. We'll eliminate all Cytonics. And so they come up to an agreement, so they're still scheming. Spencer, every time she finds a door of these, like on the Path of Elders, she sees the location of the next gate. So her and Chet are kind of jumping from fragment to fragment as they get close or as they collide. But that's a little hard going. So Chet tells her like, hey, we need to steal a starship. That way we can fly. Some of the fragments are very distant. So we need to be able to fly between these fragments. That make it a lot easier of a journey. So they make a plan to go to a pirate base and steal a starship. When this happens, she hides her reality icon in case she gets captured. She doesn't want to get stolen. So she buries it outside in the woods. And she kind of sneaks in. Chet causes a distraction. It goes wrong because she doesn't really trust Chet. So she changes the plan last minute. She tries to steal a unused starship with no heat signature, but there's like a crystal creature living in it. She got unlucky, and the crystal creature kind of like locks her out. So she gets captured. Chuck gets shot. She gets taken prisoner by these pirates and is put to like menial labor, like cleaning stuff and like cleaning parts. And she kind of gets the history of these pirates. They are led by Peg, like Pegleg, hilarious. There's a lot of like good pirate lore in this because they're all influenced. They remember stories, so they love the early human stories of pirate age. There's a lot of good pirate names and pirate thematics in here. They got pirate hats and stuff like that. It's very fun. So Peg used to lead the mining base here, and we find out what the superiority has been doing is they'll make deals like indentured servitude, like, oh, you work like prisoners and stuff, like you work an 8-year tour down here, and then we'll release you. But then they don't release people because people kind of forget, and people like lose their memories and they lose track of time, so they can keep people down here for like 20 or 30 years or indefinitely. So they're really corrupt, and she figures this out, but she makes a deal to like she comes back and re-signs on for another term because she was like, I'm going to help get these people out, but they won't let her. And then she gets trapped down here, and they're holding her like, they're like, oh, you can leave, but your sons can't leave. Like, they were born in the nowhere, so they belong here. And there's a lot of like really bad borderline slavery things that the superiority has been doing of keeping these workers trapped in the nowhere to mine acclivity stone. So Peg had like been trying to fix the system from the inside. She was like the leader of this base and trying to get people where they can leave. And then she rebels when they won't let her take her sons with her. So she forms the pirate factions, and she leads an assault on the superiority stronghold, and she gets defeated. So after that, the pirate factions split into like three main factions and a bunch of splinter factions. Two of them are led by Peg's sons, who are some of the better pilots and are mad at their mother for her poor leadership. And then one led by Peg, and then we have a couple smaller ones like the randos that had captured Spencer earlier in the story at the beginning. So the pirates kind of do raids against superiority. They do skirmishes against each other for glory and ships and stuff like that. So Spencer has a plan, like, I need my cleaning drone to like clean these really bad parts on the ship that's damaged, and she's kind of using Mbot to like hack one of the ships, and she's able to get into it and fly away. And because they don't know the cleaning bot is AI, because AIs are like banned and rare, so Mbot was putting up an air being like, I'm a normal cleaning drone. So they take off and escape, and they're pursued by the pirates. And Spencer, like, she had gone back for her reality icon, but she couldn't find it. It was gone. And so she gets shot, she flies away, she's pursued by the other pirates. She has some great dogfighting. She's a much better pilot than any of these people that are not professional pilots. They never had her training experience, and like she's been fighting this war since she was a kid, right? Like her whole culture's community is dogfighting, and that's their religion basically. And so she cleans the floor with these pirates. They don't blow up and destroy. They're using kind of, I don't know, dummy rounds. They're using lasers that like kind of ion rounds that they disable ships so they don't blow up ships and kill people. So that's how they kind of fight in these skirmishes over ships, is they'll disable them and tow them away, and they'll capture pilots and they'll capture ships. And that's why they kind of put Spencer to work, is like, oh, everyone's stick together anyway so they don't lose their memories and identity, and people kind of forget what they were doing. So this happens very quickly, like, oh yeah, I used to be an enemy but now I'm on this team. People like jump sides, and you kind of lose track of time in the nowhere. So people like, when you capture someone, it's not like, I'm going to put you in prison. Like, well, if you prove you're not going to run off, like, eventually you'll just join our team and kind of go with the program. So Spencer, using these kind of dummy rounds, disabled like a ton of ships, and she starts flying towards the starburst, but getting farther away from her fragment and the community without a reality icon and the reality ashes. She starts losing her memory. Chet starts dissolving because he's not like as strong as her. He's been out here for like a really long time, and he's super old. So you gotta be gentle with the old people. So he starts like dissolving. So Spencer turns back around. Peg is like, "What are you gonna do? Like, you can't keep flying to nowhere. You don't have the ashes for it. You don't have the stone. You'll lose your identity getting that far out into space." And she's like, "I didn't know you were that good. Why you tell me you were a pilot? Like, you could join our team. This joins everything. Like, you don't have to be a mechanic, or like, you don't have to clean the bathrooms. You can fight for us." So she's like, "Okay, I'll come fight for your team, but I have to go to these old ruins on your fragment." And so they agree. They come to like an alliance. So Spencer returns with Chet. He stabilizes. He's okay. Now she kind of joins the pirates from a position of strength. They go to these ruins. They get the next journey on the Path of Elders. Spencer develops her powers a little bit more. She kind of gets a little bit more history of the Nowhere and the Cytonics. She starts seeing like one of the first humans come through, and he has a robot on him. He has an AI like floating over around him as he's like, oh, people didn't used to get this area. They got to the nowhere through Cytonics. He's doing it through technology. He's like, oh, I thought I was the first one. No, he was Cytonic. Sorry, but he has more advanced technology. But he comes through and he sees all this like history and ruins and culture and furniture. Like, oh, there were all these stories of ancient Cytonics. I'm not the first. People were here before. He's like kind of talking to the AI. We kind of get a history of the Delvers that one of the first Delvers like wiped out all the Cytonics, but it's like a weird out of order, like get this weird Ouroboros kind of thing going on because it's kind of outside of time. So the first Delver was like defeated, but it like wiped out like a lot of the Cytonics. So that's what wiped out like a lot of the Kitsune Cytonics and a lot of the early human ones. And so all of these Cytonics that were like missing from other cultures were destroyed by one Delver, and that was the one they defeated. Like they won and still lost a lot of people. And now there's like 1 million Delvers. And like, what are we gonna do? So we get a little bit more of the history. We start seeing this guy who's important, and I think he's from Defending Elysium, which is another kind of short story by Brandon Sanderson that's in the universe, but it's like thousands of years earlier, and I have not read it yet, so I'm sorry. But I did hear a little bit that some of the names that they're drawn very specifically, they tie into this earlier story. But for right now, we just start getting more of the history of Cytonics and the Delvers piece by piece. So Peg's plan is for Spencer to fight this like big pirate battles. They're gonna become the pirate champion, and then maybe we can lead the fight on the superiority base, the mining base in here, which where Spencer needs to go because that's where the biggest and last fragment. It's one of the oldest fragments. It's largest, has one of the oldest, biggest doors. So they go out and they fight. All the pirate factions meet up. They have a big tournament. It's gonna be 1-on-1. Spencer versus the reigning champion, which is supposed to be Peg's son, but it's not. It's a newcomer who defeated Peg's son in a skirmish like an hour earlier out of nowhere. So it's like a small ship with these big guns, like a helmet-sized ship. So Spencer's flying against it, and the pilot's really good, and he's like speaking all poetically. She's like, wait a minute, I recognize this voice. I recognize this random warrior poet, and it's the Kitsune Emperor that she had met in the previous book that was blown up, that when his ship was blown up or damaged, he had escaped into the nowhere, being Cytonic. He had, by instinct, teleported himself away, landed in the nowhere, and he had been captured by pirates, fought his way to becoming the pirate champion, the best warrior. He was captured by the same pirates that had tried to capture Spencer. He is awesome. I'm going to look up his name right now. Come on. Jason Wright is the guy who came through in the nowhere with the AI robot, kind of more advanced future of the human storyline. Jason Wright. Hesho is the Kitsune, fox durable warrior poet emperor fighter pilot. So she defeats Hetso honorably and becomes the pirate champion. The other pirates are like, we're not gonna, well, the rando pirates that we don't like, the bad pirate, like, well, we're not gonna join you anyway. Come on, Hetsu. He's like, no. This person spared my life and they fought with honor. I'm gonna serve and work with them. So Hesso kind of joins up and he kind of has a connection to Spencer. She remembers him. He doesn't quite remember her, but there's some familiarity there. So we get Hesso on the team. He's one of my favorite characters. He's super cool. All those pirate factions are like, okay, you did it. You're the pirate champion. You've shown great prowess. We're all going to join under you. Which is super convenient, but we learn this kind of Peg's plan. This whole division of feud of the pirate factions was a farce. Like, her son's like, we don't believe in you, Mom. We're going to form our own teams. This is all her plan. That all the other races, other than the humans, are just bad at violence. They're not very aggressive. They have no idea really how to fight. Humans are just naturally good at being mean jerks. They're naturally aggressive. So a lot of the other races needed the experience. So she kind of formed this fake feud with dummy rounds, with lasers on safety, that they could skirmish against each other, become better at dogfighting, become better at pilots. And this was kind of, she couldn't just ask them to train, so she made this into a big game to trick them into training and learning to be a better pilot and function as squads and as a unit. And now that they have a strong pilot and they've had this, years of experience, she says this is the time to strike now. And so the whole pirate games, the pirate champion, was the signal for her sons to like switch back allegiance, merge these three main armies with a lot of the smaller straggling groups into one big coalition and attack the superiority stronghold base in the mining colony. So they go and attack with a show of force. Then the Delvers also kind of attack. And so Spencer is kind of fighting against the Delver fragments and stuff like that. And the base mainly just kind of folds. Like there's some diehards that they have to like fight. But the chief of the base is like, I just really want to go home. Like, will you protect my people? Like, you won't kill anyone. Like, we'll turn the base over to you. We got to act fast. Like, I'll change the security code. So really, a lot of people are rebelling against the superiority. So they kind of land on the base. We're kind of getting into a deadline that Spencer, with her abilities, is they just sense the Delvers that they're going to send a fragment at the base and just wipe out all the like Cytonics and people here. They're tired of all these people acting out. And so they kind of rush into the base. They're ready to capture it. Yay, pirate champion. Yay, inside job. People just kind of succeed. They lock the gates so the superiority can't send reinforcements and more ships in. They find with Spencer's Cytonic abilities, she finds the base's reality icon, which allows everyone to kind of keep their identity and memories here in the base. Peg had one at the base, so they capture that, and with it is her reality icon, her dad's pen. She's like, how did this get here? Like, we never really figured out why it went missing. She was like, did other people steal it? Did Peg find it? And Peg had kind of told her, like, oh yeah, we had one of these at the base. They just kind of move sometimes. They kind of get lost. They shift. They might be like in a different wall or different cabinet or a different shelf. Like, they kind of like, as the frag's moving around, they don't always stay in the same place. We're like, that's weird. So Spencer finds these two reality icons, and she gets like a sense of relief, and she realizes the reality icon is actually Doomslug. This pen was the slug, but it's Cytonic, so it can change its appearance, and it can disguise itself into nowhere. And to not attract the attention of the Delvers, they just look like items here. So they look like a teddy bear or something that's like memory, something significant from their owners or connection to their past. So she knew that the pen was really significant to Spencer, so Doomslug took the identity of the pen. And she was very mad at Spencer for leaving her. Spencer was like, I thought you went home. And she's like, you are home. You're my friend. Where you are, it's my home, which is really sweet. So Peg gets her reality icon back. Spencer gets hers, which is Doomslug. Band's getting back together. They go to like the fourth and final fragment. They kind of learn that the history of the Delvers is finally coming to a close. And this is what the Delvers didn't want. They didn't want their history to come out. They had made a deal with Spencer, like, hey, if you don't go any further on the path, we'll let you stay here forever, and you can become an explorer with Chet, and you can jump from fragment to fragment, and you can live your life out here. Just don't quit finding the memories. Like, quit going down the path. Quit it. Just stop it. And like, we'll leave your people alone. And she's like, well, you already made a deal with Winzik. If you're going to betray that deal, won't you betray this deal? And she kind of sensed their intentions, and she's like, oh, you're immediately going to break this deal and wipe out this entire fragment and kill, hundreds of people and me. So she keeps going. She finds the last door, like the big, giant ruins, like tons of memories. And she gets the memory of, like, I think it was Jason Wright who comes through with the AI, and he had lived out here with Cytonics exploring around. And the AI that he was with him was like the first AI. And it had started processing faster and faster and became aware. So that was the first sentient AI, was what came with Jason. But it was kind of new. He was coming through here as like an old man. And he had created this AI thinking he would become self-aware, but then he dies. And AI is still kind of like new. It's dormant. It's young, right? It's child AI. And it's like grieving over the loss of its like friend, a mentor, and Jason, like the only kind of companion it had. And she starts to notice the similarities in the shape of this AI, this sphere with all the orbs and holes and sockets, that it looks like the Delver body they saw just blown up. And so we learn that this AI had become like self-aware and sentient, and it was grieving over the loss of Jason, and as it was becoming aware, and this became the Delver, that they were like an advanced old AI, and in grieving they had like deleted their own memories of Jason. They were just like, it hurts so much to remember, so they had cut out parts of their programming and like humanity, but their self-awareness they had cut out, truncated with the efficiency of like a robot. Like, oh, let's delete those lines of code to try to like stop the pain, and let's just forget. And they had made, I don't want ever want to be alone again, so it self-replicated itself like thousands of times, and that's what we have. All these thousands of Delvers was this copy of this AI in the nowhere space, and their purging of memories influenced the nowhere, which is why other people were losing their identities and their sense of self, because the Delvers just wanted to forget. They wanted to like have silence and no noise and all conformity, and everyone's the same and ageless and no one changes. So that's all the things that they were feeling, was their inability to process grief over the loss of their friend, as they were like a newborn AI that didn't know how to handle their emotions and loss. And we get a lot of parallels with this with Mbot, who's dealing with his own grief over the loss of his ship and stuff like that, but he's able to like have conversations with Spencer and kind of learn how to deal and process with those grief, which, you know, people do over their entire lives. Over years and years of dealing with emotions, but these Delvers, this robot, getting emotions for the first time and immediately had to deal with like a big life event, did not know how to handle it. So that's kind of the big secret of the Delvers, that they didn't want Spencer to follow the path to find the memories of themselves and the person they lost, because like they were trying to forget. So if someone else remembers, Spencer can help them remember their pain and loss, which is why they were scared of her and didn't want her to continue this journey. She starts flying towards the center of the starburst, which is the center of the Delvers, and that's how they get home. That's how they're going to teleport back. So they're in a ship. We got Hesso in the ship. We got Elmbot. We got Chet. We have Elmbot the drone, Doomslug, and as they're flying out, Chet's kind of like dissolving, and she learns that Chet was actually a Delver the entire time. She's like, oh, this is suspicious that you took this form. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I scanned your memories and I saw this name, so I took this appearance of this old pilot that was Mbot's original pilot, but he did die out here. He flew the starburst and dissolved. He wasn't strong enough to survive it. He tried to escape through the starburst like Spencer did, and they absorbed his kind of memory. So she had taken Chet's form, the Delver had taken Chet's form to try to be more innocuous, inconspicuous, to kind of help Spencer on their journey and to hide from the other Delvers. They can, Cytonic ability to change form and appearance like Doomslug did. So this Delver had made up the path of Elders to give Spencer a quest, a very convenient journey, because they knew the secret was in these ruins and these memories, and so she figured out which ones were the most significant and kind of gave Spencer the visions, like, go here next. So this great adventure journey was kind of a plan by the Delver to help Spencer learn the secret of the Delvers, which she can use to confront them. And so that was like the friendly Delver that she had changed has been her ally and friend kind of this whole time. So that was a big twist. They start flying out and they're being attacked by all the Delvers, and she's able to, like, the Delvers they made ships out of like nowhere matter, and so she's dodging. She can see what they're doing, so she's able to like cytonically sense where they're gonna go. So she's avoiding them all, but there's so many you can't avoid a wall of fire. There's no hole to like fly through. So she starts taking damage. Um, there's a lot of like big sacrificial moments that Elmbot kind of like flies away in a drone and kind of screams cytonically and draws their attention. And he like gets destroyed, and then Elmbot gets destroyed. Doomslug disguises them. So he's able to like disguise Spencer and the whole ship by making them look like a rock or something. Her ability is disguise, and that's what they do when they hyperspace travel. That's what they do in the Nowhere, is look innocuous like an item. So she's shielding everybody. Chet runs off the Delver and confronts all the other Delvers, and they get ripped apart and destroyed. Spencer kind of makes it towards the center of the Nowhere, and she's able to like teleport away. She learns that Elmbot didn't get destroyed. Elmbot learned the secret to making a body outside the drone. That's what the Delvers did. They made their own Delver bodies in the appearance of their own self with the orbs and the circles, but they could make it out of matter, Nowhere matter. So Elmbot had to learn that secret from them, and the drone body got destroyed, but Elmbot's still alive, his consciousness, I believe. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Hesho sends out Elmbot's old drone, which is programmed with a copy of Elmbot. It causes a distraction. Yeah. Doomslug hides Elmbot from the Delvers. The Delvers destroy the drone. Chet sacrifices himself, tells Spencer it's an honor. The Delvers catch Chet. They catch him, consume him, lock him away. Okay. Yeah, so they use the drone, which is a copy. He's on the ship. Elmbot sacrifices himself. Spencer promises to come back. He flies off. The Delvers chase him and destroy him. I was making sure I didn't miss anything. The ending's a lot. But it looks like I got everything. Nailed it. So Spencer enters the light burst. The Delvers are surprised to find her alive because they thought they blew up her and the ship, which was Elmbot remotely piloting himself. She feels all the hate from the Delvers. She latches on to one that feels different, and it's like courage and hope, and that's Chet. So they connect, their essences intertwine. So she binds with the Delver, the Cytonic and the Delver, Chet and Spencer. And then they try to destroy her, but touching her hurts them. They hate change, and she's like different. That's her ability, is like, I will change, I'll become what I need to be. I can adapt, I can learn new things. As that human, that's kind of what she's challenging the Delvers with, who want everything to stay constant, locked in stone, so they don't feel pain or hurt. She gets a location in her mind. She hyper jumps back to Detritus, holding Hesho and Doomslug. When she enters into Detritus, she sees Jorgen, who's wearing an admiral's uniform, so we don't know what happened there. I really thought we got a sense that... Okay, the plot summary doesn't say it, but I'm pretty sure we get that Elmbot survived. He learned how to make his own body. So that's kind of the book ends. She escapes from the Nowhere. She's back on Detritus. Doomslug and Hesho are with her. We might have Chet survive through her, and I'm pretty sure Elmbot made his own body and survived somehow. Sorry, that's a terrible end of a summary, because I don't remember. Well. But there are going to be loose threads, because we have one more book remaining, a couple weeks. Defiant, November 21st. I hope that helped, and I'm sorry for the confusion on the ending. I'm pretty sure... Yeah, I think she's going to come back for Elmbot. I'm pretty sure his body's still out there. She says, I'm going to come back for you again. I hate to leave you a second time. That's what he was mad about the whole time. I'm pretty sure he figured out how to survive. and Spencer's going to come back for him. So M-Bot's lost in the nowhere, possibly maybe destroyed. Spencer made it out. She has been gone 6 weeks in the nowhere in real time, and Jorgen's an admiral now. So Skyward Flight stories will tell us what happened with Spencer, or sorry, happened with Jorgen and the other members of Skyward Flight. Outbound Flight? Skyward Flight? Oh, sorry. This ending got away from me. But continue watching, continue reading, read good books. Skyward Defiant, couple weeks. Skyward Flight, if you want to fill in the gaps. And Defending Elysium, if you want some early stories that connects in somehow. But thanks for watching. Sorry for the ending. Bye, buddy.